You get the message at 2 a.m., not a paragraph, not an apology, just a soft knock on the door they slammed. Hey, can we talk? And instantly, your body remembers what your mind has been trying to forget. Your stomach tightens, your pulse climbs, your brain starts building a whole movie in 3 seconds. Maybe this is accountability, maybe this is love, maybe this is the moment everything turns around. But here's the line you need to hear before you type a single word back. Most people don't come back because they finally understand you. They come back because life stopped cooperating without you. That text isn't always about growth. A lot of the time, it's about discomfort. It's about a plan that failed, a replacement that didn't replace, a new situation that looked exciting until it got real. And if you don't understand that, you'll mistake a late night ping for a life-changing breakthrough. Tonight, I want to give you something better than hope. I want to give you clarity, because men get trapped in this cycle all the time. You hold it together, you take the blame, you carry the peace, you become the stable one. Then they leave, and you're the one left staring at the ceiling, wondering if you should have been different. And when they reappear, you feel chosen again, even if it's just because they ran out of options. So let's talk about what that "can we talk" usually means. Not in a cynical, bitter way, in a clean, honest way. The kind of honesty that helps you keep your dignity. The return isn't the point. The reason is, your mind wants to believe silence means healing, but silence is often just the space where your nervous system finally stops getting hit. It's the first time your body isn't bracing for another argument, another cold shoulder, another emotional bill you didn't agree to pay, and that's why no contact can feel like coming up for air. After a few weeks, you stop checking the phone every 5 minutes. Your appetite comes back. You sleep like a human again. You hit the gym, not to punish yourself, but because you can finally focus. You laugh without forcing it. You start remembering who you were before you became someone's emotional employee. Then, out of nowhere, they reappear, not with a plan, not with a change pattern, not with ownership, with a breadcrumb. A "how have you been?" A "I saw something that reminded me of you." A "do you hate me?" A "I miss our talks." A "can we meet for coffee?" And if you're honest, what hits you isn't the words, it's the doorway the words create. Suddenly the past feels reachable again. Suddenly you can almost taste the comfort. Suddenly your brain is arguing with your boundaries. But here's the thing, a lot of returns aren't driven by love. They're driven by memory. And memory is dangerous because it edits reality. Memory keeps the highlights and deletes the bills. It plays the best scenes and skips the nights you felt small. It brings back their laugh and forgets their disrespect. It reminds you of the chemistry and forgets the confusion. That is not love. That is nostalgia. And nostalgia is not a compass. It's a sedative. Your brain is not a judge. It's a chemistry lab. This is the part nobody teaches men, because men are expected to just move on like you can flip a switch and delete a person from your nervous system. Attachment doesn't disappear because you decided it should. It quiets down, then flares up. And the flare-ups often have nothing to do with destiny. They have everything to do with biology. When you connect deeply with someone, your brain ties that person to relief, to safety, to reward, to routine. You don't just miss them emotionally, your body misses the pattern. That's why a random song can put you back in the old apartment. That's why a hoodie in the closet can hit harder than a speech. That's why seeing them smile in someone's story can make you feel like you lost something today, even if the breakup was months ago. Your brain marks them as familiar relief, and when your life feels stressful or uncertain, the brain goes looking for familiar relief the way a thirsty man looks for water. So when an ex reaches out, it can trigger the same circuits as early romance for a short window. Anticipation, excitement, craving, the feeling that maybe the story isn't over. But that doesn't mean the relationship is fixed. It means the brain recognized a familiar stimulus. A spark is not a structure. The rush doesn't tell you the truth about tomorrow. It tells you your nervous system just got activated. And here's the hard part. Many people mistake activation for compatibility. They think, I feel something, so it must be right. No. Sometimes what you feel is an old wound recognizing an old pattern. They usually come back when their replacement stops working. Let's be blunt in a way that protects you. A lot of exes don't return at random. They return on schedule. Not your schedule, theirs. They return after the new relationship hits reality, after the honeymoon fades, after the exciting stranger becomes a normal human with boundaries, after the new person asks for emotional responsibility, after the chaos stops feeling romantic and starts feeling exhausting. They return after loneliness shows up, after the weekend arrives and there's no one to call, after they realize freedom isn't the same as peace. And this is where men get caught. Because you weren't just a partner. You were stability. You were patience. You were the calm. You were the guy who didn't explode. The guy who carried the weight quietly. The guy who made life feel manageable. They didn't respect it while they had it because stability looks boring when you haven't earned it. Peace looks ordinary when you've never had to fight your own mind. So they go chasing intensity, thinking intensity is love. Then intensity turns into unpredictability. Unpredictability turns into stress. Stress turns into regret. And suddenly, the person who felt too safe becomes the person they can't stop thinking about. Not because they learned, because they lost their cushion. You're not a second chance in their mind. You're a reset button. And a reset button doesn't get pressed because the operator has grown. It gets pressed because the system crashed. They don't miss who you were. They miss what you became without them. This is the part that can mess with your ego if you don't see it clearly. Sometimes they come back when you finally stop chasing them. When you stop writing long messages trying to explain your heart like it's a homework assignment. When you stop replying in 30 seconds. When you stop being available for conversations that go nowhere. When you stop trying to earn basic respect. When you get your edge back. Not arrogance, not cruelty, just self-respect. You start saying, no, that doesn't work for me. You stop negotiating your standards. You stop over-functioning for someone who underfunctions. And that shift does something powerful. It changes your energy. Neediness is loud. Confidence is quiet. Neediness tries to convince. Confidence doesn't have to. So when they see you living, not performing, when they hear you got a promotion, when they see you're training again, when they notice you're not checking for them, they feel a sting. Not because they're evil, because you're no longer a guaranteed option. And scarcity can make people suddenly value what they took for granted. But listen carefully. Them valuing you is not the same as them being ready for you. Admiration is cheap, change is expensive. The biggest trap is confusing contact with accountability. When an ex returns, men often get hooked on one question. What does it mean? And because you want it to mean love, you interpret everything through that lens. A call becomes, they're serious. A tear becomes, they finally understand. A compliment becomes, they're different now. A late night confession becomes, this is real. But none of that matters if the pattern hasn't changed. So here's a better question. What has actually been rebuilt? Not what was said, what was built. Have they named what they did wrong without you coaching them? Have they apologized without blaming you for their choices? Have they described what they're doing differently specifically? Have they accepted consequences like time, distance, or your boundaries without trying to rush you back into the old dynamic? Because a lot of returns are just emotional tourism. They visit your life to feel better. They get reassurance. They get nostalgia. They get the comfort of your presence. Then they leave again when they feel stable. And if you let them do that, you become an emotional charging station. Always available, always convenient, always sacrificed. You don't want that. You want a relationship where love comes with responsibility, not just access. The truth about no contact that nobody wants to admit. A lot of guys use no contact like it's a lever. Like if they disappear for long enough, the other person will panic and come back. Sometimes they do come back, sure, but here's the reality. No contact isn't a trick, it's a test. Not a test for them, a test for you. It reveals what you're really attached to, the person or the feeling of being wanted by that person. Because if weeks go by and the only thing you're thinking is, why aren't they reaching out? You're not healing. You're waiting, and waiting keeps you tied to someone even when they're gone. No contact done right isn't silent begging. It's clean detachment. It's you taking your power back and saying, I will not chase someone who chose to leave. If they never reach out, that is information. Painful information, but information. And if they do reach out, that's also information. The question is, what are they reaching out for? A real future or familiar comfort? Stop broadcasting your healing like it's an application for their attention. Let's talk about the performance trap. Some guys post pictures hoping it lands like a punchline. The trip, the gym, the new car, the dinner with friends, the look how great I'm doing angle. I get it. It's human. You want them to feel what you felt. But if your healing requires their reaction, it's not healing. It's negotiation. There's a difference between building a better life and trying to display a better life. Real confidence doesn't announce itself. It shows up consistently. And if you're honest, you can usually tell when you're posting because you're proud, and when you're posting because you're hoping. Hope is not weakness. But hoping for an ex to validate your growth is giving them a remote control to your self-worth. Take the batteries out. Build quietly, win quietly, heal quietly. The men who truly level up are not loud about it. They just become undeniable over time. The timing tells the truth. If you want to know whether a return is real, stop staring at the words and start studying the timing. Do they show up when you're vulnerable? Late at night, on holidays, on weekends, after you post something, after they've been drinking, after a fight in their life? That's not romance. That's emotional hunger. Do they reach out with urgency but no structure? I need to see you. I can't stop thinking. Can we talk right now? Then they vanish again? That's not maturity. That's impulse. Do they keep the conversation vague? Do they avoid specifics? Do they avoid what happened? Do they say things like, I've just been going through a lot without taking responsibility for how they treated you? That's not accountability. That's a soft attempt to get comfort without paying the price of change. A man with standards doesn't get hypnotized by contact. He evaluates consistency. What you teach people when you reopen the door too easily, every time you let someone return without consequences, you send them a message you didn't mean to send. You can lose me and still keep access to me. You become a safety net. And safety nets are useful for emergencies, but they're terrible for building character. Because when someone knows they can fall and still be caught, they don't learn to stand. This is why some people repeat the same cycle for years. Leave, return, not because they're fated, because you made it easy. That doesn't mean you have to be cruel. It means you have to be clear. Boundaries are not punishments. They are requirements. If someone wants a second chance, they don't get it by saying they miss you. They get it by showing you they've changed the parts that broke trust. Here's what real change actually looks like. Real change is not an emotional speech at midnight. Real change is boring in the best way. It's consistent behavior. It looks like they name what they did specifically without minimizing it. They acknowledge your experience without arguing with it. They take responsibility without bringing up your flaws as a defense. They make a plan for what's different now. Therapy, habits, communication, actions, boundaries. They respect your pace instead of rushing you to soothe their anxiety. They accept that trust is rebuilt on your timeline, not theirs. They show consistency even when they're not getting immediate reassurance from you. If you don't see that, you're not looking at a new relationship. You're looking at the old one trying to restart, and you already know where that ends. The addiction of unfinished business. A lot of men think they miss their ex, but what they really miss is the unfinished ending. You wanted closure, you wanted a clean explanation, you wanted the story to make sense, and when it doesn't, the mind keeps circling the same questions like a dog chewing a bone. Was it my fault? Did I mess it up? What if I said it differently? What if I changed sooner? What if they come back and I'm not ready? That loop can feel like love, but it's often just your brain trying to reduce uncertainty. Uncertainty is painful because it steals control. So your mind tries to regain control by replaying the past. But you cannot think your way into peace. You earn peace by choosing a direction and walking it. Closure is not something they hand you. Closure is something you decide. Ask yourself the question that cuts through every illusion. If they never returned, what would you actually be grieving? Be honest. Would you be grieving them as a person, or would you be grieving the feeling of being chosen, the identity of being someone's favorite, the comfort of having someone to call, the fantasy that you could fix it if you got one more chance? Because those are two different griefs. And if it's the second one, then the ex isn't the answer. Your self-respect is. A man who knows his value doesn't beg for a place in someone's life. He builds a life that doesn't require permission. You were never meant to be a fallback. You weren't built to be someone's emergency contact when their new life gets lonely. You weren't meant to be the person they run to after the party ends. You weren't meant to be the quiet option they settle for because excitement burned them. You were meant to be chosen clearly, kept consistently, and respected publicly and privately. Not because you're perfect, because you're a man with standards. If they left once, that alone doesn't make them a villain. People make mistakes. People get scared. People self-sabotage. But if they return with the same mindset, the same entitlement, the same lack of work, then the second round isn't love, it's repetition. And repetition is not romance, it's a habit. What to do when they reach out again? You don't need a dramatic speech. You don't need a revenge paragraph. You don't need to prove you're stronger. Strength is not a performance, it's a decision. If they reach out and you suspect it's nostalgia, boredom, loneliness, or regret without responsibility, the cleanest response is often no response. Silence is not childish when it's protecting your peace. Silence is a boundary when words would reopen a wound. If you do respond, keep it simple and grounded. Ask for clarity. Ask for substance. What are you looking for? What has changed? What are you willing to do differently? And then watch the behavior, not the promises. Because a man doesn't rebuild a future on vibes. He rebuilds a future on evidence. The point of all this isn't to make you cold, it's to make you free. Freedom is being able to feel something and still choose what's best for you. Freedom is missing them sometimes and still not going back to a dynamic that cost you your sleep, your confidence, and your peace. Freedom is knowing you can love deeply and still have standards. You're allowed to remember the good, you're allowed to feel the loss, you're allowed to have nights where it hits you out of nowhere. But you are not allowed to abandon yourself just because someone knocked on the door they once walked out of. A final truth, and it's the one that changes everything. The real power is not in making them come back. The real power is in becoming the kind of man who doesn't need them to. Not because you're bitter, because you're grounded. You don't need their apology to be whole. You don't need their regret to be validated. You don't need their late night text to prove you mattered. You need your peace. You need your purpose. You need your future. So, the next time your phone lights up at 2 a.m., don't answer with adrenaline. Don't answer with the part of you that still wants to be chosen by someone who couldn't choose you properly the first time. Answer with your standards. If they have truly changed, they will respect your boundaries and show you consistency. They will move with patience. They will build, not beg. And if they haven't changed, then the best thing you can do is let the silence do what your explanations never could. End the cycle. The right person doesn't need a second chance to treat you right. They earn the first one with maturity. And if an ex comes back without growth, the only thing you'll be losing by staying available isn't time. It's the life you could have built if you stopped waiting at the door. You're not here to be someone's comfort zone. You're here to be a man who respects himself. And when you truly respect yourself, you stop calling chaos chemistry. You stop calling nostalgia destiny. You stop calling a return a sign. You call it what it is. A test, not of your love, of your clarity. If you want to keep growing from here, don't focus on signs they miss you. Focus on signs you're becoming unshakable. You sleep through the night, you keep promises to yourself, you hold your boundaries without guilt, and you choose peace even when your heart gets loud. That's the win, not them coming back. You not going back to what broke you.